Skol Nation, stop right now. U.S. Bank Stadium is shaking with breaking news, and one fact is already on the table: 12 of 19. A quarterback decision inches closer, a wide receiver could be gone, and a ghost from Green Bay just returned to haunt every Purple Heart in Minnesota. Insiders warned us last night, and here's the first payoff. That 12 of 19 completion line? It's the exact number that has coaches behind closed doors debating whether to pull the plug on the future. If you bleed purple louder than you hate the Packers, hit like and subscribe right now. We start with the quarterback crisis that has Skol Nation divided. Stay locked. There's a double cliffhanger at the end. Midnight whispers. Closed meetings. One name that filled every off-season dream now sits at the center of the harshest conversation in Minnesota. Is it time to bench him, the player? The first-round pick that Skol Nation rushed to buy jerseys for. The name? J.J. McCarthy. And here's why this changes everything. After two brutal outings, the Week 12 disaster in Green Bay might have been the breaking point. McCarthy completed just 12 of 19 passes for 87 yards, with 0 touchdowns and 2 back-breaking interceptions, walking off Lambeau Field with a brutal 34.2 passer rating, his lowest of the season. That's not just bad, that's franchise-altering pain. But here's the wrinkle. In the first half, McCarthy actually looked functional. The Vikings went into halftime with more total yards than the Packers, 141 to 140. Then the second half hit like a sledgehammer. The offense produced only 4 total yards. 4. The quarterback took 4 sacks, looked hesitant, looked rattled, and the Vikings limped out with an ugly 23-6 loss. Every misfire, every stalled drive just amplified the question: are we breaking this kid by leaving him out there? The numbers on the year tell their own cold story. In 6 starts, McCarthy has completed 54.1% of his passes, averaging just 155 passing yards per game, with 6 touchdowns against 10 interceptions, and an overall passer rating of 57.9. That's not below expectations, that's drowning. Inside the locker room, coaches still want him to succeed, but at some point, tough love might mean pulling him off the field. The talk now is about sitting McCarthy down and giving undrafted rookie Max Brosmer a shot, while allowing McCarthy to reset from the sideline instead of drowning on the field. Skol Nation, this is where emotion and logic collide. On one hand, you don't give up on a first-round pick this early. On the other hand, every painful Sunday chips away at his confidence. Is continuing to start him really developing him, or just letting him take hits physically and mentally that he may never recover from? Maybe the smartest move is to let him watch, breathe, and grow away from the weekly avalanche of pressure. So what do you say, Skol family? Is it time to hand the reins to Brosmer, or do you ride with the kid and accept the chaos? Hit like, drop your hottest take. And tag that one friend who's been defending or roasting McCarthy all season. Because as if this quarterback storm wasn't enough, the next wave hits one of the only bright spots in his passing game. Ready to find out what piece of his support system might be ripped away just when he needs it most? A connection built on trust. A safety valve in the chaos. The player? The Vikings WR3, the one McCarthy looks for when defenses smother Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. The name? Jalen Nailor. And ESPN just threw a spotlight on the business side that could rip this relationship apart. Here's the cold breakdown. Nailor has just 20 catches this season, but he's racked up 318 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns while carving out an important role. A massive 215 of those yards have come in games where McCarthy has been the starter, meaning more than a quarter of McCarthy's total passing production has flowed through his WR3. That's not a fluke, that's trust. Skol Nation remembers that breakout game against the Ravens, 5 catches on 6 targets for 124 yards and a touchdown, his first 100-yard outing as a pro. In the middle of all the chaos around McCarthy, Nailor has become that when all else fails option you look for when the pocket is collapsing. But ESPN's Kevin Seifert has thrown a harsh spotlight on Minnesota's future plans. With Justin Jefferson already being paid around $35 million per year, and Jordan Addison eligible for a huge extension that could push $30 million annually. The Vikings are staring at a cap crunch. As good as Naylor has been, he might simply be too expensive to keep around as a WR3 once he hits the open market. Unless the team does something shocking, like moving on from Addison, the writing on the wall says Naylor may be playing his final season in purple. And this is where Skull Nation's blood really starts to boil. How do you justify taking away one of McCarthy's favorite weapons when he's already drowning in pressure? Every young quarterback needs at least one guy he trusts to be in the right spot, especially when his top two wideouts draw double teams. Losing Naylor would mean ripping away that quiet lifeline, just as McCarthy is trying to steady himself. It's not just about targets and routes. It's about rhythm, confidence, and chemistry you can't just manufacture overnight. So what's the move, Skull Nation? Do you lock up Jefferson and Addison as the most expensive WR duo in the league and accept that Naylor walks? Do you push the cap to the brink and try to keep all three? Or do you even consider moving Addison to keep the cheaper connection for your young quarterback? This is where roster building and human emotion clash head-on. Hit that like button if you believe Naylor deserves to stay, and spam the comments with pay the man or trust the duo depending on where your heart is. Because just when you think the drama has peaked, the most shocking rumor of all returns and throws gasoline on the fire around McCarthy's future. You've braced through the talk of benching your young QB, you've felt the sting of possibly losing his trusted WR3. Now get ready for the ghost from our greatest rivalry to step back into the picture. A ghost from Green Bay, a name that made Skull Nation's skin crawl for over a decade, a legend who carved up Minnesota's defense like clockwork. The player? The four-time MVP who just might be available in 2026. The name? Aaron Rodgers. And the idea of him putting on purple is back, louder than ever. Here's why this rumor refuses to die. Rodgers is expected to hit free agency in 2026, and with McCarthy struggling badly this season, that old what-if is creeping back into every talk show, every podcast, every heated bar argument across Minnesota. Rodgers might not be the MVP caliber player he once was in Green Bay, but his numbers in Pittsburgh this season are still borderline elite compared to what we've seen in Minnesota. Completing around 66.4% of his passes for nearly 2,000 yards, with 19 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions and a rating hovering around 97.7. He has reminded everyone that even late in his career, he can still carve up defenses. And yes, Skull Nation, that hurts to admit when your own young quarterback is stuck under 60% completions, double-digit interceptions, and some of the lowest totals in the league among starters. The possibility suddenly doesn't look so crazy. If Rodgers and the Steelers flame out in the playoffs or choose to pivot younger, he could be back on the market. And if McCarthy's performances stay at an unwatchable level, as some outlets have already described, the Vikings front office will at least have to consider every possible option at quarterback. That's how the league works. Loyalty is beautiful, but results rule everything. The idea of Rodgers, the ultimate former enemy from Green Bay, walking into US Bank Stadium as the home quarterback would flip the NFL world upside down. Of course, so much has to happen before that becomes reality. The Steelers might decide they can't live without him. Rodgers might prefer a different city, or even retirement. The Vikings might decide to ride with McCarthy no matter how rough it gets, betting everything on his long-term upside instead of chasing a short-term fix. But you can't stop the noise. And you definitely can't stop Skull Nation from dreaming, arguing, and freaking out over the idea of stealing a Packers legend to chase one last run at a Lombardi. So here's the real question. Vikings family, if it all lined up, if Rodgers were available, if the money worked, if the front office believed he had one more big run left, would you want to see him in purple, even if it meant admitting the McCarthy experiment failed? Or would you rather take the pain now, keep building around your young quarterback, and pray that patience finally pays off for once in Minnesota? Drop your answer in the comments, pound that like button, and subscribe if your heart rate just spiked thinking about Rodgers in a horned helmet. This is your team, your saga, your purple legacy. Because the next twist involves a players-only meeting that happened last night. And what was said could either unite this team or fracture it. 3 stories, 1 storm. The quarterback decision that has Skol Nation divided, the cap crunch that could rip away McCarthy's safety valve, and the ghost from Green Bay that refuses to fade. Minnesota doesn't fear thunder. Minnesota is the Thunder. This franchise just entered the most brutal crossroads in years. Do you believe in the kid, or do you chase the legend? If the Vikings bench McCarthy, you risk crushing a first-round pick who may never recover. But if you keep starting him and watch him drown every Sunday, you risk losing the locker room and wasting a season where the defense is good enough to compete. The North runs through US Bank Stadium if Minnesota makes the right call. Here's what I need from Viking Nation. 1. Smash that like if you believe the Vikings are still the most dangerous dark horse in the NFC. 2. Drop a comment with your boldest prediction. Are we benching McCarthy? Are we keeping Naylor? Are we signing Rodgers? 3. Subscribe, because every single subscriber makes Packers fans furious. But listen closely. Here's the edge of the cliff. Sources say McCarthy's fate could be decided after the Thanksgiving game, and the Packers just cleared cap space for their next big signing. Which domino falls first? Plus, a Vikings defensive leader called a players-only meeting last night, and what was said could either unite this team or fracture it. Skol Nation, the battle is here. Hit subscribe and let's make the NFC North bleed purple. See you in the next war.